Hi everyone, my name is Muno Ogelohwohor and I'm currently a CSL fellow with Bosch. So my co-fellow is Dipam, and he's not currently here presently, but he's based in the Silicon Valley CMU campus. And thankful that everyone here sort of has some context as to like how AI has sort of been used in different applications. Today in particular, I'm going to build off of what Carsten has talked about with Bosch and also Sean Amorati and what he's been doing as well in how we're using generative AI for due diligence. So Gartner published this research surveying different markets, and they found that like by 2025, they're estimating that more than 75% of venture capital and early stage investor executive reviews would be informed using artificial intelligence and data analytics. And we're sort of like using this as a proxy, as an estimate as to the type of impact that this is also going to have for corporate innovation. So to ensure that a thorough assessment of these corporate startup business potential is realized, Dipam and I, through the CSL Fellows Program, we've sort of outlined these 5 core metrics that would be important to evaluate startups. One of them being market potential. So how would you be able to know or categorize or figure out the total addressable market for the business that is being pitched? Another thing is technical feasibility. So that's always like a huge aspect of it, is figuring out, okay, if this problem is being pitched now, how are we going to develop this over the next couple of years, and to what scale could that potentially be realized? And then business model viability. So who's paying? Obviously, that's a huge part. Like, you have to get money over the years, but also like how is that being paid and in what sequence? And then team strength. Carsten talked about this, which is really, really important. And a lot of research papers also pointed out to the fact that the viability and the success of a venture also primarily lies within the dynamics of the team. So that's another aspect that we're looking into. And then company alignment. In this case, like how do these factors align to Bosch's principles? But in this case, you could also generalize to not just Bosch, but corporates, large-scale multinational corporations in general. All right, so with the power of the LLM forces that OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, Meta, in the next couple of years, we'll find out who else will be added onto this list, have developed, we're also going to use that and combine that with the power that is in the corporation, which is the data. So you can imagine having pitch decks, company websites, financial data sources, market reports, a lot of patents, and also research papers, and combining that with the knowledge that the language models are going to provide you. You sort of have insights into sort of like this idea that's been pitched. How would that sort of be viable over the next couple of years? So this sort of synergy is very important. So through this fellowship, we sort of outlined a rubric that's based on commonly tracked VC metrics. One of them being like market potential, like I mentioned before. So you could imagine for each one of these, how would you get a score for example, like TAM? And let's say I have a score range of like 1 to 5, 5 being like, yes, they've sort of like surveyed the land and we believe that the TAM is adequately like measured and this is potentially going to be viable. And then the same thing for like the growth rates, validation, traction, and competition as well. And I know Sean talked about before, if you think about competition, like how do you, like if an idea has sort of been pitched to you, how do you validate the competitors in that market? So you could think about those sort of RAG approaches to gathering data and then evaluating if the competitors that have been pitched aligns with the type of information that you're receiving as well. And then we could do that same thing for technical feasibility. So thinking about like the technology readiness level, scalability, and also risk. And then intellectual property. So like, is this idea, could this idea potentially lead to a patent, or is there already a patent? And then business model viability, team experience, like I said before, knowing the team information. One of the approaches you could potentially use is, you could go on LinkedIn, scrape information if you can. I didn't say to do that, but then figure out how you could sort of gather information about the team, skills, and coachability. I would like to focus on coachability because that's very company-based. So how your organization measures the impact and the performance of the employees, you could sort of gather those data and use that as part of the data that you'd sort of feed into your custom LLM. And then the last one is strategic fit with the company. So again, you want to make sure that the idea is really aligned to your business, given that this primarily is for a corporate Incubator, you want to make sure that it's aligned to your own business model thesis as well. And then partnerships and sustainability. So I would sort of go through a high-level approach of how we're doing this. It's sort of leveraged from the Taylor taxonomy that Sean has probably painstakingly made you sort of like listen to and understand, but it's actually, to some extent, it's very interesting. So the first thing, we define a role. So you tell the LLM, you're a board member of an incubator for a large multinational corporation. You have a score rubric ranging from 5, highest, to 1, lowest for each metric. The metrics being what I talked about before. Analyze all these attached documents and prioritize key details relevant to the metric. Okay, the documents or whatever you feel is the most relevant. In this case, you have the score rubric along with other documents as well. Assign a score with reasoning, because we need to understand why you gave that score. If the data is lacking, assign a score of 0. And then lastly, provide results in JSON formats, put the score and the reasoning. And in this way, you could sort of scale this out to multiple things. So here I have score and reasoning, but you could also imagine the link or the reference or what page this data was from. So you could sort of grow this over time. And then this is sort of an example of a scoring for the total addressable market. So I've sort of color-coded the prompt to the left-hand side, and there you could see the role, the score, data, task, and output. And to the right, that's sort of what the LLM gives. So in this case, it gave it a score of 5, which is great. So for this startup's total addressable market, it believes that the documents state that the TAM for this startup is some $32.4 billion, which falls in the category of 5, which it was from a score rubric. And then we're defining that a score of 5, is greater than 1 billion, which these parameters you could sort of change relevant to your organization. And this, indicates significant global market potential. And that for me, as someone that potentially will be reviewing this is a nice way for me to sort of get into the weeds of the information. So yeah, that's all I have to sort of present today. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have any other questions,